Okay, so back when I used to actually upload more than once a year, I made a video where I ranked every zombies map. But looking back at it, that video was terrible. It's crazy to me that video was 3 years ago, but basically there's one main thing about it that bugged me, so in this video I'm going to try and set the record straight. Shangri-La is my favourite zombies map, and I want to talk about how well designed I think it is. I have a lot to say about this map, but back in that video I didn't fully explain the points I brought up just because it would have went on for way too long for a ranking video. Videos like this are always going to be hard to make, because everything's subjective, right? Yeah, obviously. If I wanted to make a video about why I liked the map, it would go something like this. I think Shangri-La is fun. Thanks for watching. But I still want to give an in-depth analysis of it, just without doing the pretentious YouTuber thing where I present my conclusions as objective or anything like that. And I don't know, I just thought this would be an interesting video to make, so hopefully it's a good watch. Shangri-La is a map that a lot of people didn't like at first, but a lot of us seem to warm up to it over the years. There's definitely a lot to pick apart with this map, but the least controversial aspect is probably the aesthetics, so that's what I'm going to start with. Love it or hate it, this is a good looking map, man. I mean, right off the bat, it looks so distinct from anything we'd seen before, or even after, with the closest thing to it maybe being Shinonuma. Point is, its looks are definitely a standout aspect of the map, and it honestly nails it. The colour palette is strong, and it has some memorable and distinct areas, like the waterfall or the pack-punch stairs. It's also got enough variety between rooms, it's not like the whole map is just one big jungle that all looks the same. The background areas look great too, some of them go above and beyond looking like an actual extension of the place you're exploring. And in a game design kind of way, the barriers, doors, perks, and transportation are all generally well highlighted, which is always nice. As far as simply looking good, I can't really fault it, it's definitely well executed, aside from the underground section maybe looking a bit samey. At the same time though, that doesn't make it objectively perfect or anything. The setting might not suit your taste depending on what you like to see in zombies. I mean, it's all bright and pretty, and it isn't trying to be depressing, scary, or ominous like most of the other zombie maps are. By the way, I'd say they went for a different direction, and they did a pretty good job at it. Let's talk about the layout. This map has a traditional Black Ops 1 layout. It's relatively small and very close quarters, with what can seem like little room for maneuverability, and a notable lack of any traditional training spots. And that's a huge point I'm going to come back to later, by the way, don't worry. The transportation is solid, and honestly doesn't even need to go this hard for how small the map actually is. But you've got two geysers, one of which takes you between two of the furthest points on the map, which is really convenient and improves the flow of the game. And the other one only takes you to the next room over, and is almost entirely superfluous, but occasionally comes in useful as an escape route. You've also got the minecarts, which aren't a game changer or anything, but they're inoffensive and mildly entertaining, I guess. The one in the MPO room can sometimes get you out of a tough situation, so I'll give them a pass. What I can't give a pass to is the quicksand thing. Listen, I'm the biggest Shangri-La fan on earth, and even I'll admit this thing is shit. It serves no purpose, it's unavoidable sometimes, and can really fuck you up for no reason. There's no trade-off or advantage to it being there, and it's not punishing you for anything, it just sucks. The waterfall can also be annoying sometimes, and the pack-a-punch stairs isn't exactly the safest, but those would be my only nitpicks with the actual layout. Another cool thing is the random perks. It's nothing crazy, but it spices up the game a little bit and just makes your game feel slightly different without feeling that the map is RNG heavy or anything like that. Okay, so lack of traditional training spots, what the fuck does that mean? A lot of people complain that there's no training spots on Shangri-La, and while I see what people are getting at, it's just not really true, and the layout actually works out to be the most engaging aspect of the map. Yeah, there's no obvious spot, but if you think outside the box a little bit, you still have the MPL room, which you can split into 2 training spots and have 2 more people camping by the door. But you can also train in the AK-74U room, spawn, or have up to 2 people doing a full map train. And while I'm at it, the bridge is a really great camping spot. But a lot of people don't realise any of this because they'll play the map twice, die on round 6, and go, this map sucks ass, where's the Kino stage, where's the Darice catwalk? All the places I mentioned are perfectly viable, but only give you a little bit of leeway. The map forces you to be very deliberate at every moment, rather than letting you turn your brain off and just mindlessly run around in a big circle the whole entire time. I love that there's no obvious strategy, and you have to make a tight layout work. You're always one wrong step away from dying, and each round you pass genuinely feels like you're beating the odds because of that. Maybe this is a hot take, but I think zombies is fun when it's an active fight for survival and not a game of attrition. I'm not just saying that difficulty magically makes the map better either. It's not that you can't train, it's that you have to think outside the box a bit and constantly focus on not fucking up. And that's probably the most controversial part. Some people just don't enjoy their games being that tense, and that's totally cool. But I think what's even doper is how the monkeys and bosses double down on that design philosophy, where they make the player locked in at every moment and you gotta strategize even the smallest things. The bosses and monkeys really raise the skill ceiling of the game, meaning there's not a lot of room for mastery outside of the regular moment-to-moment action, and they have a sort of depth to them where it's not as straightforward as either you kill them or get killed, or in the monkey's case losing your drops. The napalm is good because he shows up mid-round and feels a little more random. You can kill him, or if you're smart about it, you can juke him and watch himself blow up, and he rewards you with napalm fire, which kills zombies for you. He adds a little bit of chaos to break up the monotony of normal rounds, as well as giving you a nice bonus that rewards you for thinking about positioning. But if you're not up for the challenge, you can just try to keep a distance and shoot him instead. I have to admit though, that sometimes he spawns exactly where you're standing, and you just instantly die. That's honestly just bad implementation, with some really annoying consequences, but it's still definitely a huge problem. It's not a problem with the design or the concept, but it definitely detracts from the map, and it's ridiculous that an issue like this still happens in the remaster. Like, bugs happen, that's fine, but something like this should be 1 in a million, and I know it's happened to me more than a handful of times. The Shrieker is less interesting, but he still takes out nearby zombies with him, and while he's way faster, like, the ruck sprinter fast, he kills you in a less direct kind of way. But basically, his differences mean that you can deal with him differently, and this provides a nice contrast to the type of chaos the napalm throws in. The bosses really complement that Type 2 sort of fun that the map is really going for, where it forces you to stay engaged and think on your toes a lot. But the napalm having the depth to add a skill ceiling to the encounter is a really good design choice, and the sort of thing I wish more zombies maps had. So we also have the monkeys in this map. They spawn in and steal your drops, and while this happens the drop actually changes, which is really interesting, especially if you get something you don't need. And it doesn't cycle too fast for you to comfortably get the drop you want. Anecdotally, I have the reaction times and fine motor skills of a drunk 4-year-old, and I can reliably turn my drops into double points or max ammos if I want to, so I don't want to hear nobody telling me, oh, the monkeys make the game hard. Like, I want to make the point that it's a risk-reward, a skill ceiling type of situation, and it definitely kinda is, but it's so unobtrusive that it's really just more of a nice feature. It isn't too hard to deal with, and just adds a sprinkle of depth, decision making, and mild chaos to something that's usually a straightforward and boring aspect of the game. On top of all of that, if you end up with a monkey spawned in but there's no drops for him to take, you get the chance to 1v1 his ass for 500 points. This lets you turn any drops you get into 1000 points, plus a double points. And even if you can't be bothered to do all of that, or if you just mess it up, it's still super easy to turn everything into a double points, which is extremely useful and rewarding for getting set up in the early rounds. And in the later rounds, it's a nice way to take matters into your own hands and get max ammos if the RNG gods haven't blessed you. Not to mention, max ammos can allow you to get every perk. This might sound OP, but the timing to pull it off is crazy. The window for the perk showing up is tiny. It's hard to pull off even in general, let alone while having to follow the monkey and still, not dying. By the way, the monkey spawns aren't evenly placed around the map, so some places give you more time to pick up the drops if you don't want to deal with monkeys. The wonder weapon of this map, the baby gun, or this, if you're a fucking nerd, is pretty rare, but theoretically super OP. It deals infinite damage and has a lot of ammo. So what's the catch? You gotta run through the zombies to kill them after you shrink them, so you still risk taking damage after you've shot them. It's a good trade-off that rewards skill, but still functions well as a weapon even if you're not using it in the most efficient way possible. It's also worth noting that the amount of damage you take from the baby zombies is actually tiny, plus it shrinks them for like 15 seconds when pack-a-punched. So for the extra step it takes to kill the zombies, it still really has a lot going for it. And you're still able to shoot them if you don't want to risk it, and that inadvertently makes explosives feel way more useful, especially with PhD Flopper being on the map. And it's cool to see them serve a purpose more than they do in the other PhD maps, but they were just more of a novelty apart from the ray gun. And going back to the actual layout of this map, the place being so tight makes buying a PhD and running explosives as a get-off-me weapon a way better idea than it normally is. But by the way, don't get it twisted, the baby gun isn't perfect. Straight up, it's way too fucking rare. Like, it's way harder to get than it has any right being. Especially with the map being so tough, and especially because it's one of the coolest, funnest things about the map. I don't know, it's just a gut thing, but I feel like if it was just a little more common, I'd like the map more, and it would just feel less daunting to people who aren't already sold on the map. And annoyingly, it seems like it's somehow substantially more rare in the remake. And actually in general, they kind of butchered this gun in the remake. Like, in theory, it's still the same gun and whatever, but there's like this weird resistance when you run through a crowd to kill them. I don't know if you're like clipping into them or some shit, but it's like the difference between cutting through warm butter with a katana versus cutting frozen butter with a prison knife. By the way, this map kind of made the problem with ammo way less frustrating than it usually is. The Wonder Weapon Thunder Gun didn't give you max ammos, but the baby gun can, which is a huge deal as obviously this is going to be your main method of killing. Not to mention, it already has a generous amount of ammo, considering one shot can kill like a whole horde. Actually, I just realized I've not fact checked that, but it can definitely kill a lot of them at once. On top of that, you can use monkeys to turn any drop into a max ammo, and that's obviously not going to always be the easiest thing to do because it happens at random and you're not always going to be ready. But this map definitely throws you a couple of bones to save you from a shitty situation. On the whole, the guns in Black Ops 1 run out of ammo way too fast, so having a couple of straightforward mechanics that make ammo less of a pain in the ass if you play your cards right is a really clever aspect of Shangri-La's design. Also, it's another little reason the Mustang and Sally or crossbow really get to shine in this map, and it always feels like you have monkey bombs on a map where, let's face it, you're going to need them a lot more. It's a small thing, but I feel like on other maps, again especially in Black Ops 1, you've got all these guns, but it doesn't matter which ones you like using, because you're actively handicapping yourself if you try to make them work. Obviously some weapons have to be better than others, and I like that because it makes the mystery box more fun and it gives you a sense of progression, but I think making ammo less punishing, and putting you in situations where explosives, even shotguns, are more valuable as a get the fuck off me option, is a good idea. It just leaves you with a little more room for player expression and experimenting with different playstyles. It helps the differences between different kind of weapons feel more interesting, and it adds a little more preference into it, rather than the few weapons that are super optimal being the more obvious fix. The only other major aspect of the map I'd want to talk about is the Easter egg. Now this might sound stupid coming from the #1 Shangri-La fan, but I've actually never done the Easter egg. Listen, getting 4 people who are down to do an Easter egg on a map that's this fucking hard isn't an easy sell, which I had to find out the hard way. From what I can tell though, just from watching other playthroughs of it, it's pretty inoffensive and actually has a few cool moments. I don't know, it's not a huge deal either way though, like, if it's a good Easter egg then cool, but if it's shit then whatever. Like, it's not like people go for the Easter egg every time they play zombies. I think most of us can agree that Easter eggs are just a fun little thing to try a few times if you're feeling fancy. For example, a lot of us like Mob of the Dead, even though the Easter egg was a total oversight, but that doesn't ruin the rest of the map, you know what I'm saying? Now, as much as all the points I've made in this video sum up why Shangri-La ends up being my favourite zombies map, and again, I think it's generally really well designed, I'd be lying if I said I don't think it has flaws. The worst offender might be the pack-a-punch tiles. It just requires way too much coordination, and if you don't have mics on co-op, you have to be straight up psychic to pack-a-punch even once. I think a really easy straightforward fix would be if you changed it so that it didn't have to be simultaneous, like maybe the tiles stay down for a certain amount of time. That way, if you're talking to your teammates, you can still coordinate like you usually do, and have it go smoothly. But if you can't, it's still possible to do it by yourself for the whole team, it just might take a bit longer. And again, the quicksand mud thing is needlessly frustrating, like it's just an awful idea in every possible way. But luckily it only applies to one small area, but yeah, you can avoid it and I have no idea why they decided to put that in. Like, it's just completely terrible. If I was to give one piece of constructive criticism, I'd say just delete the whole thing obviously, like I don't even know what they were trying to go for. And then there's also the spikes, which are a smaller thing but also didn't need to exist for pretty much the same reasons, so again, we'd be better off if they just didn't exist. Training takes a high level of coordination for co-op, and it becomes a big ask, especially if your friends aren't all at the same level. Zombies is already bad enough for letting shit players fall behind in a negative feedback loop, but playing this map on co-op can be a total blast if your teammates are up for the challenge and looking for a map where you have to coordinate. But if you're not already sold on Shangri-La, co-op is actually really off-putting and can probably end up feeling like a frustrating, chaotic mess, to the point where you'd probably have a better time playing solo, because at least in solo you have the whole map to yourself to work out a strategy. You don't have somebody else taking the wonder weapon, you can pack-a-punch when you want, and you have a safety net with quick revive, meaning you don't need to deal with the game getting 10 times harder just because your teammates can't revive you. But yeah, overall I think Shangri-La is misunderstood. It keeps you engaged at almost every moment. Its most daunting aspects actually reward you if you master the mechanics, instead of just throwing annoyances at you and making you deal with it. It inspires real out-of-the-box thinking and makes more loadouts and playstyles viable. I also like how it throws in a healthy serving of chaos, and I feel like it gives the middle finger to maps that boil down a survival game mode to nothing more than a game of attrition. It's really satisfying and lets zombies be everything it can be, but usually isn't. We all grew out of playing Keener to Tone, because it didn't go hard enough to emphasize the aspects of the game a lot of us fell in love with when we first started playing this game like a decade ago. I really think this map is a fucking masterpiece, and it's not just like an elitist get good difficulty kind of thing. But at the same time, I totally get that its difficulty is probably what puts some people off from being able to appreciate everything this map is doing. I could totally turn this into a bigger point about game design and player engagement or Type 2 fun or some shit, but I think I've already kind of talked about everything I wanted to, so that's pretty much the end of the video. But yeah, it's been a while, huh? Honestly, I'm not going to promise that I start uploading again more regularly or anything like that, because we all know that would be a load of bullshit at this point. But yeah, I think going forward with the channel, I'm going to take a step back and just drop any sort of ideas about what I think the channel was meant to be or anything like that, and just sort of take it on a video by video basis, just make whatever I'm feeling at any given moment. And the channel's probably going to look like a confusing mess, but I'll be pretty happy knowing that it's all videos I wanted to make, and that they're all up to a quality that I'm happy with. And if people want to watch, then that's cool, and obviously I'd love to see that. But if it doesn't do well, that's fine as well, because I think it's kind of lame to focus on that. I wouldn't be happy doing these videos if I was letting validation and success come into the equation. When all I really want to do here is just fucking make stuff. And it might be me talking about video games, it might be me talking about something totally different, it might be me talking about life, about art, it might just be a weird shitpost video, I don't know anymore. But yeah, if you hated this video and think I'm an idiot, please dislike the video and leave a hate comment telling me why, because I do read all of that shit. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one, whenever that is.